Next story I wanted to talk about is about the Republican Civil War that's raging right now. Mike Pence, of all people, came out recently and had some interesting things to say about the election. So I wanted to give this article a read to kind of get us into this story, and then we're going to talk about some of the more high-profile televangelists that are massive Trump fans weighing in on Mike Pence and how they feel about him. This article is on npr.org. It's written by Claudia Grisales, I believe. The title is Pence Steps Out of Trump's Shadow, Raising New Questions About His Political Future. So let's give this a read and see what it says. It was written on February 12th, by the way, 2022. It was a series of words some never expected former Vice President Mike Pence to utter. President Trump is wrong. Pence was responding to Trump's claims that Pence had power to overturn the 2020 presidential election results during last year's joint session of Congress. Pence's comments raised new questions about his political future and whether he's charting a new course in the Republican Party out from under Trump's shadow. I'm very interested to see where it goes from here, said Brendan Buck, a former top congressional GOP aide, because it's not clear, at least in the next 3 to 4 years, that there's much room for somebody to be outside of Donald Trump's good side. Historically, vice presidents see themselves as the heir apparent to the Oval Office. But for Pence, that plan appeared to be cut short in the wake of the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol when rioters called for his hanging. Pence had declined to accede to Trump's demands to reject Joe Biden's win during the day's joint session of Congress. He has since drawn Trump's growing ire. In response to Trump's claims he could have overturned the election results, Pence spoke out in his strongest remarks yet. Here's the quote. "I had no right to overturn the election," Pence told the Conservative Federalist Society earlier this month. "The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there's no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president." Now, let me give you a little bit of context for this. There is a Republican Civil War absolutely raging at this immediate moment. Absolutely raging. There are people out there who are completely aligned with Trump 100% and continue to repeat the same election lies that we heard back, a year and a half ago when the election actually took place. For example, Hank Kunneman, I just talked about him earlier. He's been saying the same election lies this entire time. He keeps repeating them. Every time he steps up there at his lectern, he says the same thing over and over again. Just the same election lies. Trump is supposed to be president right now. Biden is illegitimate, blah, blah, blah. For Pence to come out and contradict that directly is a big deal, and it has created a pretty big rift in the Republican Party, I guess you could say. Kevin McCarthy is the House Minority Leader right now in Congress. He's one of the main representatives for the Republican Party, basically. Early February 2022, a reporter asked him the question, was the January 6th, were the events on January 6th, was it an insurrection, was it a riot, or what? He seemed to be so afraid to answer that question that he literally ran away.
You know what? Make an appointment in office and come on by that time, okay? It's not good to go in.
He ran. The dude ran. He was like sprinting practically. At least power walking. We can say he was at least power walking. And people were like nearly jogging to keep up with the guy. He was running away from the question. Well, after that happened with Kevin McCarthy, dude refused to take a stand on whether or not January 6th, where they were holed in the Capitol, and people were literally looking for them with gallows erected out back. No joke, gallows. They were looking for them. They were hiding in the chambers of Congress. And this guy was running from the question, was this an insurrection? He was running from it. Well, Mitch McConnell, after he ran from that question, Mitch McConnell comes out early February 2022. By the way, if you're unfamiliar, Mitch McConnell is the Senate minority leader. So Kevin McCarthy is on the House side. Mitch McConnell is on the Senate side. They're both leaders of the party. Mitch McConnell largely represents the Republican Party. Donald Trump still heavily controls the party, obviously. But Mitch McConnell, you could say, is the highest representative in government of the Republican Party right now. So whatever Mitch McConnell says in response to the question, was January 6th an insurrection or what, it's going to hold a little bit of weight. Let's listen to what he said about it.
Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next.
That's correct. Look at the people's faces in the background here. I believe these are Mitch McConnell's staff members, I think. Don't know that for sure, but they look like legitimately scared, right? I mean, this woman at the very least looks like she's scared. Her eyes are darting around. She's got a furrowed brow, while he's talking about what happened on January 6th. I have to imagine it was a scary situation for these people, really. Congress was the target of this attack. It had to have been a scary situation. And why anybody would experience something like that and lie and tell him it wasn't like a violent insurrection. Like, you were there, bro. Why are you making stuff up about this? You were hiding in the corner with your head between your knees. Why are you lying about it? I don't get it. I'm doing my best to help you and save your life to prevent this from happening again. And you are sitting over there lying about it, saying it wasn't an insurrection and saying it wasn't a big deal and stuff. What is Kevin McCarthy thinking? When did it become controversial to call January 6th a full-blown riotous insurrection? When did that become controversial? Mitch McConnell is calling it out as what it was, a violent insurrection. That's what he's doing. He's calling it out, and that's the right thing to do. But here's the problem. He's going to face the wrath of Trump for doing so. Let's keep listening.
One administration to the next. That's what it was. With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the national party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
Do you have confidence in her, Ronna McDaniel, as chairwoman of the committee?
I do, but the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
Okay, so Mitch McConnell basically comes out on record and says Donald Trump is wrong, Kevin McCarthy is wrong, the RNC is wrong for claiming that what happened on January 6th was legitimate political discourse. It was a riotous insurrection. That's what Mitch McConnell just came out and said. Well, after that, Kevin McCarthy was cornered once again, early February 2022, and he says this. This is after Mitch McConnell had his stuff to say about it. Listen.
Legitimate political discourse referred to January 6th. The RNC resolution.
Well, at least he's not running this time and not bolting. He's walking at a normal speed, I guess, maybe a little bit fast, and people are asking basically the same question. Is what happened on January 6th legitimate political discourse or not?
The RNC resolution last week referred to the events of January 6th as a legitimate political discourse. I'm wondering what you thought about it.
That's not correct with what the RNC was talking about. They were talking about, everybody knows anybody who broke in and caused damage. That was not called for, those people.
Why is he coughing in this guy's face, really, during a pandemic? I mean, this guy's wearing a mask. Kevin McCarthy is not. I'm assuming it's kind of an intimidation thing where Kevin McCarthy is trying to get him to go away by coughing in his face. I don't know why he's doing that. It's just speculation on my part. It's just really weird.
That was not called for, those people, we've said from the very beginning, should be in jail.
And then he coughs into his hand, and then he puts his hand on the guy. What is going on here?
Broken and caused damage. That was not called for, those people, we've said from the very beginning.
Bam, just touched the guy's shoulder with the hand that came away from his nose during a global pandemic. Why?
Should be in jail. What they were talking about is the 6 RNC members who January 6th has subpoenaed, who weren't even here, who were in Florida that day.
So you're supported that resolution?
Needless to say, there's a massive civil war raging within the Republican Party right now. Are you going to side with Trump against your own interests if you're a congressman? Or are you going to call it what it is and admit what happened and deal with Trump's wrath, basically? That's the question. Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell chose to call it out. Biden won the election, plain and simple. All these election lies that are spreading are just that. They're lies. Well, Shane Vaughn, our old buddy, is a little bit upset about the fact that Mike Pence came out and called Trump out for basically lying and for inspiring this whole event. Here's the thing about Shane Vaughn. When Donald Trump started coming out and supporting vaccines, telling people to get vaccinated, encouraging vaccination, a lot of Donald Trump's support fell away. Greg Locke, for example, jumped ship on Donald Trump when he started supporting vaccines. He jumped ship. He stopped supporting him. He said he's sick of Trump worship in this house, basically what he was saying. He's sick of it in this church.
Stop sitting on your butt and waiting for Donald Trump to do something in this nation. But I'm sick of Trump worship in this church. I'm telling you right now, on the authority of the Bible, if Donald Trump does not get out in front of this vaccine nonsense, he is going to lose his voter base in the next coming election. I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
Absolutely blew my mind when I heard that. A lot of Trump support fell away, but guess what didn't fall away? Shane Vaughn never left Trump's side. He continued to support him through everything. He continued to support Trump even though people were absolutely sick of him, absolutely hated him over his support for vaccines. So I wanted to listen to this clip mid-February 2022. This is Shane Vaughn's take on Mike Pence. Now that he's come out and said Donald Trump was wrong, I couldn't have changed the results for the election or whatever else on January 6th. Listen to Shane Vaughn's reaction.
Mike Pence is worse than Judas Iscariot.
I just want to point out, it's really weird to continue to compare Donald Trump to Bible characters, specifically to Jesus. This happens over and over. This is a habit that Shane Vaughn has gotten in over the past year, and he keeps doing it. He keeps doing it. I mean, how many clips do I have? I don't know. Shane Vaughn does this constantly, compares Trump to Jesus constantly. It's just weird. And by the way, it is one of the reasons why I believe that Donald Trump's cult is also a religious cult. All the religious leaders that follow him seem to have assigned Messiah status to him. Like Jesus-level status, seriously. And they continue to compare him to Jesus.
Until he made his stupid speech this week, I was holding a place in my heart that perhaps Mike Pence buckled under the pressure and he regretted it. He felt bad about it. And he just wanted to go hide his face. That's what Judas Iscariot did.
Just as a quick refresher, Mike Pence said, quote, I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there's no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. That's what Mike Pence said. That's what Shane Vaughn is freaking out about right now. Let's keep listening.
Iscariot did. When Judas betrayed our Lord, Judas disappeared.
Once again, comparing him to Jesus. When Judas betrayed our Lord, Judas disappeared. When Mike Pence betrayed our Lord, he comes out and continues to deny that this is true and that he keeps saying that Trump is wrong. It's just weird. I'm just saying it's weird how they keep using parallels to Jesus. Why couldn't you have picked somebody else who was betrayed? Why did you have to pick Jesus, really? There have been other people that have been betrayed throughout history, right? You couldn't have picked one other person other than Jesus? Why compare Trump to Jesus constantly?
As a matter of fact, Judas was so sorry for what he did that he gave the money back. In other words, he undid the damage, if you will. He gave the money back, and then he went and killed himself.
That depends on which Bible book you're reading. I think that the way that Judas's story unfolds it plays out differently based on which gospel book, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, that you're reading it from. I'm not sure which book that specific storyline is from, but they are different.
That's how bad he felt for what he did. But Mike Pence, you're not as good as Judas Iscariot because you won't go somewhere and shut your mouth. You will not go and disappear. See, now you're forcing us to call you out. You disappointed us and we were willing to let you go hide your face.
I don't know, dude. They erected gallows out front of the Capitol. I don't think they were ready to let him go do anything. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that they have increased security around Mike Pence. No doubt whatsoever. I guess they haven't been targeting him specifically like they have been Gretchen Whitmer. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, just look up the story I talked about where people were arrested for this kidnapping plot against her. So they're not targeting Mike Pence like that, not to that degree as far as I know. But he doesn't seem safe to me, honestly. If I were Mike Pence, I would absolutely have security everywhere.
But you want to still be a voice when you, sir, are the lowest of the low. And here's why you're low. Not because you buckled, not because you made a mistake, but because you are a liar, and I'm about to prove it to the whole world. That you, sir, you wear the church clothes, and you've got the church look, but, sir, you are a wolf in sheep's clothing. You have identified yourself this week as a coward and a gaslighter. That's what you are.
This guy's obsession with Trump goes above and beyond normal political leader worship or run-of-the-mill political leader worship. I genuinely believe, to the bottom of my heart, Shane Vaughn loves Donald Trump like he's the Messiah. This isn't the first time that we've seen this level of obsession either. We've seen this from Johnny Enlow. Dude says, we're going to switch from using BC and AD, or as Christians call it, before Christ and after death, and we're going to start using before Trump and after Trump.
I was asking the Lord about it. He hadn't told me, and I was like, Lord, you still haven't showed me. And then on March, right when I'm saying that, I have this, it's not an open vision, but it was a vision. And then the Lord progressively began to speak regarding that, and he said, this time in the presidency is going to be a hinge of the ages and be known as before Trump and after Trump because of the way I'm going to use him. I'm using him as a Trump card, but I'm the Trump card player. And so your nation will be known as before Trump and after Trump. And he said the nations will be known as before Trump, after Trump.
If that isn't a clear indication that he views Trump as the new Jesus, I don't know what else is. How many comparisons to Jesus does Shane Vaughn have to make before we accept that the dude views Trump as the new Jesus? No joke. These people believe that prophets are all over the place. They believe themselves to be prophets. Anybody can be a prophet of God. It's kind of part of their shtick. It's part of their belief system. This evangelical, Pentecostal, Protestant kind of belief system allows for basically anybody to be a prophet of God. Pretty much anybody. For them to receive divine revelation from God. But not just anybody can be the Messiah. And I genuinely believe they view Trump as the Messiah, the new Messiah. A few of them. Shane Vaughn and Johnny Enlow, at the very least. I believe those two really do view him as the new Messiah. So the evangelical wing of the Republican Party, the ones who view Trump as the Messiah, are at war with the last remaining Republicans who are still in their heads, basically, who are still on planet Earth with the rest of us. The last Republicans who see Trump for what he is and realize he's trying to cause this massive schism. They are at war with the evangelical voter base. And I have to say, this is nothing but good for us. Let this war rage on. Let it happen. It will only benefit anybody to the left. It will only benefit us for this war to unfold the way it seems to be right now.